I represent many of the parents who are asking the Tahoma School District to avoid breaking the law and to not introduce printed materials and internet materials into the classroom or school libraries that meet the definition of a violation of RCW 968A-050. Tahoma School District should be focusing on policies that do everything in their power to avoid costly litigation and prevent sexualization of the children. Based on recent activity with other school districts around this topic, I would like to formally request a written statement by the superintendent and the board that states there are no written materials or delivery of links to internet materials in the school district libraries or classrooms that could violate this law. Thank you.
How can we ask and expect our students to feel a sense of belonging and feel free to voice their opinions in a school setting when their like-minded parents, educators, and community partners are silenced and excluded from all district committees and boards? Question for each board member.
Thank you, Tina. We have to make sure.
How do you intend to diversify your district, including district committees? How will you ensure that there is full spectrum
respect for other people?
I will reference Laura Meyer at the last board meeting. 40 seconds over.
So we conduct the meeting in a business-like manner, and if the speaker chooses not to, we will have to have.
Okay, so are you discriminating against me?
So I'm asking again to stop. We'll have to do it.
Why don't you take the speakers over here?
Simple. Mr. Hall, can I recommend we take a recess?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mental health status, disability, age, sexual orientation, religious status, and/or gender expression, or any other factor that might deprive them of the fair access to a high-quality learning experience.
The district did not disclose that the nature of the threat was to shoot at Rock Creek Elementary. Parents and staff members deserve and need the full truth, including the full and accurate description of any threat, including all the intended victims and the type of threat, to determine what is the best level of action to take regarding their children's and their own safety.
We need a security standard for all schools, not just high schools, that does not allow an individual to decide when or whether entrances or portable doors should be locked, or the ability to disable security features in place.
I would like to encourage our district to spend summer months reviewing building security, including ensuring that all classrooms on our campuses have interior door locks and that our campuses have solid fencing and single access points.
Isn't much of a regard for minorities, and I felt this firsthand where I've dealt with racism, which sometimes turns verbal and most unfortunately physical, and I think that that is something very important for us to assess.
Thinking of what my little sister is going to encounter in her years at Tahoma High School, thinking of what I've gone through, the change that I've tried to make, it means a lot to me to make sure that our staff is intentional and our staff is there to support the students that are here.
Thank the students that came up to speak so far. Very brave. And no matter what you want to say and who's opposing you, I think you should And one of those that is rampant in our school system, I have an elementary school student and a middle school student, is the volume of bullying that happens in all of us. You would be amazed at the level of bullying that a first grader will do on another first grader, or a fifth grader will on a fifth grader, or worse, a fifth grader will on a first grader. Okay? It's horrible. Just the other day, my daughter was walking through the lunchroom at the middle school and was told to kill herself by somebody she didn't even know. And that happens all the time. Okay? We need a zero tolerance bullying policy in this district. Thank you.
Your equity policy is fatally flawed because it doesn't meet its stated goals because of the inflammatory language that it uses. The terms that you are using in this policy mean very different to different people. When you cannot agree on the language, you have bad policy. This policy will embolden political activists to bring their agendas into the classrooms. At the same time, it's going to confirm the fears of all the parents that think that they're getting more indoctrination in education. The other flaw of policy is that it assumes a dichotomy. It assumes that there's oppressed and therefore oppressors, that there's victims, therefore victimizers, good guys and bad guys. And the bad guys, you know the bad guys because of privilege and implicit bias. Listen, common sense should be telling you that this is going to divide people. It's not going to unite people. It creates tribes. It plays to people's worst tendencies of tribalism, us versus you. Rather than creating a welcoming, supportive, safe, and inclusive environment, it creates resentment, fear, and fighting. Opposing this policy does not mean it's a denial of marginalized people. Okay? As individuals, as a community, we should always seek to do better than our predecessors. This policy is not better. We need to stop. Let's not continue to bring political fights of adults to our children. Let's not use highly charged political language in our school policies. We can do better. We must have the courage to do better and be better. Thank you for your time.
However, tonight I would like to voice my concern about the equity policy. I have experienced in my country that competition is best to be given to those who can do what is best. I'm all for equal opportunities for all sexes, religions, races, and ideology, of course, as long as it's not against United States or a violent ideology. But the idea of hiring or giving priority based on anything qualifications is or prioritizing candidates or prioritizing people based on certain bias is far from equal.
I've been a military officer, was for 20 plus years. I've led men and women all over the world. And I want to say that because I understand the diversity and the value of thought and culture and experience that it brings to a team. The policies going forward, and again, I say all that not to make this about me, but spiritually because I want you to hopefully, humanize what's going on and stand, and listen to what I have to say next. The policy as it stands today, it's not ready. In all of my experience and everything I know on how to make things right, how to help people get to where they want to be, this policy is not there. It's missing one very important thing in my opinion, and that's common ground. I think this policy, I believe, passed today, I think it will only mask what the true issues are, and it's going to tear potentially this small social fabric that we have left, keeping this community together. Saying no doesn't mean that you don't think there's barriers we can knock down. And saying no doesn't mean that they're right, you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. It just means it's not right and we need to do it right and it needs more time. Thank you.
What I want to start by saying is that there is nothing that equity will accomplish that equality cannot. So we have to start by asking ourselves, what are we actually trying to accomplish? Part of the reason that we've even gotten to this situation today with this policy and these discussions is because some very serious word games have been played, namely the redefining of equality. Today, when we hear equality as opposed to equity, what those in favor of equity will say is that equality means we have to do the same thing for every person. But that is not what equality has ever meant. What equality has historically and always meant is that we will not deny services, we will not deny opportunities to adults or students on the basis of race, gender, ethnicity, religion, background. That is what equality has always meant. So if we need equity, what we're saying is we actually are denying services to students on some of those bases. And we're actually looking at kids and saying, no, I'm sorry, you're from a minority family. We're not going to get you the resources we need. Are we doing that? The answer is, of course not. That's patently absurd, right? So what are we actually trying to achieve with equity? I think the answer comes in the very document that's been sent out with this policy. When we get to the very first bullet point, it states that what we're trying to do is to narrow the gap between the highest achievers and the lowest achievers. It's very interesting. It doesn't say that we're trying to help every student achieve their very highest potential. What we're trying to do is to narrow the gap. I think about where this will take us a few years from now. Think about trying to explain this to a kid. Let's call her Sophia. And a few years from now, Sophia is asking, how do we get to a point where my race or my gender or my ethnicity is the first thing they see and the first thing they talk about? And what we would have to say honestly is that we adopted policies that determined our priorities, that determined our staffing, hiring decisions, that determined our curriculum. And that priority was not, little Sophia, that you would achieve your very highest potential, but little Sophia, that you wouldn't achieve that much more than other people. That is fundamentally flawed. It is broken. I know there's a tremendous amount of pressure on you to adopt these policies tonight. As the former speaker said, we are not ready for this. And part of the reason we're not ready is we have not identified what the real problems are. Thank you.
I'm skeptical at the same time as we think about things like terms like institutional racism. These are highly bandied about terms these days. I don't know. I think my concern with the policy is that it relies on an equity lens, right? That it relies on an equity lens to have a sharp edge to it, to actually do something. And I don't know what that equity lens is right now. I think that's something that's procedure and that we'll be working through. And so that concerns me because in some sense it feels like a bit of a blank check in a way. But I'm curious. I'm curious and I'm willing to kind of go that route.
Then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 512, action to approve the second reading adoption of policy 3203, inclusion, diversity, and equity passes 5-0.